Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Everybody, and welcome to Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott, and we're glad to have Franc Milburn on the show to talk the secrets behind ufology. It's going to be a great show tonight. The best part is we have each and every one of you here, as 1 week tonight we will be in Reno, Nevada for the fan party. Can't wait to see everybody who's going there and going to come say hello. Tim Mothman in his goatee are in the gold medal position. Rachel Beal with a silver. Sleepy Howell with a nice bronze medal tonight. High Race Fan, Robert Lamoth and James Horn. Brown Dwarf, Stephanie Kenny Blankenship, and Eternity Eternal. Good to see you all. NT Venom, how are you? Welcome to SOR Chat. Hi, Bar Madison. Princess Lion is here. Princess Lion will be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio if you don't mind. To the left of the studio. Cosmic Joe, Dutch Hank, and Human Carl are here. Human Carl, a great veteran of the United States Air Force. Thank you for your service, Human Carl. We love you here. All right, continuing on. Who else do we got? We got number 17 in your program, starting on defense from Stockholm, Sweden, Lars Jansson. There he is. Rough Rider, how you doing? And Mama Catherine. Mwah. 1 week tonight, Mama Catherine. We're going to have a drink. We are going to have a drink and a big hug. I cannot wait to see you, Mama Catherine. Gizmo, how are you? Purple-haired Pixie Lara, nice to see you. Wildberry, Thomas Rock, Ozzy, Susan Alloway, and W. David Page, thank you all for coming on in. Operation Shutdown, good to see you. And Philip Baccanuts, what's happening? Richard Elmore, thanks for dropping by. Aaron Bacca, how are you? Good to see you both. Latchkey Hustle, Necessary Dialogue, how you both doing? Hi, Christine Lynn. Ginger Turtle, good to see you. Jessica S. will be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the right of the studio if you don't mind. To the right of the studio. Gamer Quest and Kurt M. What's happening? Mike Rivers and Al Garay over on Twitch. Bench pressing 375 pounds, 43 times. He's ready for the show tonight, nice and warmed up. Oob to Joe's Maine, you've got Lubla. And Dutch Hank, thank you so much for kicking off the super chat tonight. Very much appreciate your love and support of SOR. So thank you very, very much. Aloha, Dave. Nice to see you. See how we are living. It's been a while. Good to have you here. Hi, Shiny Ray. Jeremy Jones, JSCO, thank you all for coming on in. We're going to have a great show coming up here. Matthew Gutka, how are you tonight? Robert Lamoth and B, thank you for joining us. So we continue on with our roll call here. And Mama Susan, thank you for coming on in. John P. Adventures, welcome back. And Super Crazy. Vanessa. And who's next? Troy Dudley, welcome to the show. SG Nav Spotter, Mike Gerst, welcome to SOR Chat. Thank you. Oh, it's the M&M candy guy. How you doing, Mike? Yes, I ate those on the airplane, and my son has had some too. Thank you for that, man. Very much appreciate it. All right, Dewey Cheatham and Hal, good to see you as we are caught up so far. Let's get the radio side going, shall we? Hello and welcome to the radio and podcast side of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. We are in roll call right now, awaiting the arrival of Bill WD-40 so he can lube us up for tonight's show, because you always want to go into a show nice and smooth. Lee the Bee, thank you for joining us. And want to remind all of you, the Super Chat is open. It's a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. Hi, Paul Demon. Good to see you. As well, you can shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. We do not have ugly swag, people. No ugly swag. And that little beep that you heard, that means Dirty Filth is going to be arriving here momentarily to hang on out and paint another great cartoon for us. Deborah Rooney, welcome, and thank you for that lovely super chat. Very much appreciate your nightly support on Spaced Out Radio. Thank you, Debster. And yeah, we're going to get going here. Don't forget, you can shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. Look good, feel good. And yeah, Mike Gerst, nice to see you, my man. Here we go, everybody. Throw those horns up. Let's rock. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. You'll do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. We got a great show of UFO information tonight, as Franc Milburn, former intelligence officer in the UK, is going to join us to talk some of them UAPs. Yeah, maybe a couple of UFOs as well. Then, in hour number 3, Steve Stockton from Among the Missing. Robin Haynes is here with the Crypted Report. It's Dave 101 night. We're going to get into Bigfoot and the weird news of the week. All right, let's have some fun, shall we? Let's get right into it. Dive deeply into the world of UFOs. Man, I'm pumped up about this one. Very much pumped up. And why? Because Franc Milburn is not only one of the good guys trying to solve this entire UFO secret, he's very vocal about what he knows and his intentions of trying to bring truth, justice, and honesty and integrity to the UFO world. He is a strategic and operational advisor, former intelligence officer for the Five Eyes Alliance, an alumnus of Sandhurst and the London School of Economics. This man has worked for Fortune 500 companies, aerospace, government clients, and he's even worked in combating counterterrorism at West Point. Yeah, he's done it all. He's also a veteran of the UK military. We love him around here. Franc Milburn, it is always a pleasure to have you on Spaced Out Radio. How you been, my friend?
Thanks very much for having me back, Dave. It's great to see you, brother.
It's always great to see you. And you are such an encyclopedia of information when it comes to, projects and government projects and UFOs and everything. You're one of my guys that I like to go to try and see what is going on, because the one thing I know about you is I'm always going to get an honest answer. Did you ever think when you joined the military as a kid that some decades later you would be in the heat of all the UFO talk?
I don't know about that, mate, but no, I mean, if you'd asked me sort of back in 2016 when I got back into the topic, I'd never thought that I would have written about UAP or B, that I'd be studying with them to that kind of extent, and C, even less, that I'd be on kind of podcasts chatting to nice blokes like you. So, no, I didn't have any idea.
Well, what made you go public with not only what you know, but to keep the investigation going? I realize, being an intelligence officer and an investigator, it's much like being a journalist. Once you get on a topic, you gotta find out about it. You gotta go all the way. I could totally understand that. Was that like that for you, or was this something that you were kind of pushed into?
Sorry, what was I pushed into, mate? In terms of what, mate?
Into looking into UFOs.
I'd always had an interest in them, but kind of, from an early age and early experiences, kind of as a young officer in the military, I kind of came into contact with the phenomena or phenomenon with people talking about UAP, but I didn't really kind of like hit me big time again until sort of 2016. When I started getting back into it. It's just something I left it alone for so many years. I maybe read like a book or two a year on it, but I wasn't like doing it like I am now, where you're reading everything that you can get your hands on every day, and you've got loads of book besides, and plus you're chatting to people as well. I think the whole thing that's really changed it as well is social media, because whether you're on I don't know, Facebook, Twitter, or you're on like Signal groups, there's just so many different groups of people now chatting about things. That you can never really get away from it. It's like 24 hours, and I don't mind that at all.
Frank, you're a very independent person, and this UFO subject really seems to have a few different lines drawn in the sand. You have the governmental side, where we're not ready to play with non-human intelligence yet, but we're not sure whether what is ours or what is theirs. And I know that people in the intelligence communities have a good laugh at people like us who are discussing these topics, because they think we're all a bunch of tinfoil hat wearing weirdos. Okay. But you've worked on that side. You've worked on this side with talking to experiencers and people who have had the ultimate experiences with the unknown. You've worked with different areas of trying to figure out this entire mystery on UFOs and UAP. Is this something that we need to be concerned of? Is this something that there's way too much division right now?
Well, I think, yeah, I mean, there's division, but I mean, there's lots of division, like, within the UAP community itself. I mean, if you're talking about, sort of former intelligence military professionals, it's like the more I've got into the subject, the more I've met people, former military, former intelligence, or former both military and intelligence, who are experiencers themselves, like I am. And you realize actually that a lot of people in, former military in very responsible positions, people like Bob Salas, for example, people like Jim Semivan, who have had an experience of one kind or another with the phenomenon or phenomena. So I don't think it's a question of people laughing at us. I think people who laugh at us are those who really don't understand it, and they're still kind of wrapped up in the ridicule of it. But there's some very, very serious people involved. I'll give you an example. When I wrote my first paper for the Begin Sadat Center for Strategic Studies, my first paper on UAP, I sent an email to this guy called Abi Har-Evan, who's former head of the Israeli space program, literally a rocket scientist. He was a lieutenant colonel in the Israeli military, a missile engineer, literally a rocket scientist. And I was asking him about Haim Eshed, who was the guy who came after him as head of the Israeli space program, and who'd come out talking about his revelations of, ET and et cetera, et cetera. And Abi Har-Evan, the colonel, actually said, no, this guy's like really legit. And he said there's a lot of people in Israel, serious military and intelligence officers, who believe that it's real and who take it very, very seriously.
Is this a subject we need to be taking seriously? And for the non-believing public, explain to them out there why this is something that has to move forward.
Well, I think on the first level, it's the greatest. It's probably the most important thing that we're ever going to learn about ourselves as human beings, and about the nature of reality or realities around us. And it's going to teach us more about ourselves than we've learned in since like recorded human history. If we can get our heads around this and actually understand the nature of the phenomenon or phenomena, it's of incredible importance. And I think sooner or later, the cat's got to come out of the bag, as it were. And I think, as we've seen since 2017, that's happening more and more. So I don't think it's something that can stop now. I think the ball's been rolling too far, but it's very important. I mean, for humankind.
Why now? Over the last couple of years, let's go back 70 years since the release of the New York Times article, this has been a hot button topic for major media outlets, for people talking about it on podcasts and radio shows and YouTube channels. And I'm not just saying people like us who delve into this topic each and every night, but you see movie stars, athletes, rock stars, everybody for wanting to talk about this subject. Why do you think it was important now for all of a sudden the government to start talking about UFOs?
Well, I think principally because sort of high profile people, came out and started speaking about it. Chris Mellon, Lou Elizondo, both of whom, I have the utmost respect for. And once those videos released, and once the articles were written by the New York Times, Politico and others, and by very serious journalists who were very actually courageous writing those articles, but once they actually got it taken seriously, then I think it was kind of inevitable. I think a lot of people are impatient because they want more and more to come out. But you have to look, like you said, if you've been like guys like you and I, and you've been looking at it for from the past 20 or 30 years, it's like that there were things that were coming out, but suddenly since 2017, it's been like a massive rush by comparison. But I think for some people maybe who come new into the topic since then, it seems like things are happening slowly. But actually, if you look at it, I mean, a hell of a lot has come out since then. So I'm optimistic that way.
Do you think, though, that there's maybe something more to that than just a story breaking? That maybe the extraterrestrials themselves may have made a phone call, sent a signal down, and said, "Hey, guys, we're coming"?
Whether they're extraterrestrials or something else, let's call it, I don't know, non-human intelligence. That may be the case. I don't know. But certainly, I think now there's far too much information that's out there, and far too many people who are on the case to let it actually go away. And especially with rise of social media as well, it's like everybody can become an analyst to some extent or another. You come across something or something coming out on FOIA, and literally within 24 hours, you've got like dozens and dozens of people who will have examined it and have written about it and disseminated their studies on it. So it's not something that's going away. In terms of why, I'm not sure that the sort of move disclosure has come from necessarily out there, wherever out there is. I think it's more down to courageous blokes and women who put out there.
Do you believe we're being visited?
I think we've been visited for a long time, and I don't mean that in a sort of fatuous way. I mean, there's been recordings of UAP like objects throughout kind of human history. But I think if you look at the evidence, there's now no doubt whatsoever whether we're talking about visitations by sort of like what they call nuts and bolts craft, for sure. There's far too much evidence for that not to take that seriously. And in terms of physical visitations by entities associated with said craft, I think without doubt. I mean, there's far too many people who claim to be experiencers for it all to be BS. I mean, there's literally too many of us, right? And you speak to highly credible people. For example, I talked about Bob Salas. I mean, people who've been in charge of, the United States, nuclear capabilities. You have to take it very, very seriously when people like that start talking.
What are your experiences that led you down this road?
Yeah, I don't really go public talking about them, but I come from a family that you call of experiences. My mother's experience, missing time, had what you call, I suppose, an abduction type scenario. I've experienced missing time. Both my mother's parents have experienced phenomena. I mean, they were married for like over 40 years, but together they were always experiencing phenomena together. So there's no doubt in my mind, but everything actually seemed to get more weird and spooky since I delved back into the topic, and since I started writing about it, like more synchronicities, and then you meet more people who you find actually are quite similar to yourself or very similar to yourself. So definitely, I think the more that you delve into it, the more that you look at phenomena or phenomenon, then the more it or they or whatever it is look back at you. Definitely.
No, I can see that, and I can understand. You are having any type of resistance in telling your experiences, and that's okay. For some people, it's a very private affair, and I don't um and I don't resent that from you, because or anybody who does that for that matter.
Always
I
happy to
just
talk
show.
offline, buddy.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I understand that. I completely get that. When people bring out their experiences, one of the biggest arguments right now in the UFO community is the fact that experiencers always seem to be pushed to the side. They always seem to be like, hey, you go over there. We know you've been dealing with this, or you claim you've been dealing with this for the last 20, 30 years. But you know what? We have this pilot. We have this military crew. They're more important. You don't matter. And I think it's really sad, Frank, that many people in the UFO community are shoving aside those who've had the experience. What is your thoughts on that?
I think people on social media especially can be like very, very cruel, and that's why a lot of people. I mean, like mental health, why people don't want to talk about things in public. Because, like you said, it's a very, very personal thing. I think from an official perspective, and this is probably the most important one, I think it would be very, very hard for the US government or the British government to actually admit that, hey, there aren't like hundreds of thousands or actually, millions of people over the last 40, 50 or 70 years who've been having these experiences, and we have absolutely no control over it whatsoever. Some people have good experiences, some people have malign experiences, but if you're a situation where people are being taken from their home or homes against their will and being forced to undergo things that are painful or terrifying, and the government says that it has no control over that, that's very, very worrying for the government. But I think that the more that we find out about people who've actually been on the inside, and I've mentioned some names, then I think that you actually find, like people like, Eric Davis, Hal Puthoff, Jim Semivan, John Alexander, people like that. They're all experiences. They've all had experiences with it. And I think that's why it's being taken more and more seriously by people inside government. And I think eventually the whole, whether you call yourself an experiencer, a contactee, or an abductee, dependent upon your experience, I think that will have to become more and more important. It will come more to the fore, because eventually, whether government is doing it now in private or whether it's going to do so in the future, it has to pay attention more and more to what people are saying about their experiences, good or bad.
Do you believe people are being taken?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind. Absolutely no doubt in my mind whatsoever. I mean, I've experienced missing time. I wouldn't say I've ever been abducted, but I've experienced missing time. And like I said, my old lady as well, and I've spoken to many, many other people. I mean, it's like the more that you delve into the topic, the more you meet other people who've had similar experiences to you, or they have had at least experiences that you can relate to. And you talk to very, very credible people. I mean, people who have responsible jobs, whether it's in the corporate world or whether it's in the military, who've had these things happen to them. So it's very hard not to take it seriously. There's no doubt in my mind whatsoever. There's always going to be people on the outside who don't understand, but hey, it's like, I'm happy for you that you haven't had those experiences, maybe.
Yeah, it's a tough world to be in, man, when, your own community doesn't even support you. But we don't have you here to talk about the UFO community with 5 minutes to go here before we go to break at the bottom of the hour. Franc Milburn is our guest tonight. We're going to get into the secret side of UFOs, because there's a lot of things that people don't know what's going on. They don't know that their government, whatever country they live in, is actually working on these subjects privately and behind the scenes. When you started opening your eyes to the fact that there was these cover-ups happening, what was your first thoughts?
Not surprising, really, considering all the other things that have been covered up. Not surprising at all.
Why wasn't it not surprising?
Well, if you work in the intelligence world, then a lot of most things don't ever tend to come to light. I mean, governments are very good at keeping secrets on the whole. So not surprising to that extent, and also not surprising that governments would go to such lengths to cover things up. I mean, if you look at some of the greatest secrets that were kept secret at the time, whether it was British and American and Allied efforts to disguise preparations for the invasion of Europe in 1944. There's some tremendous human undertakings that have been kept secret for many, many years. We only started to learn in the kind of early 1970s about some of the disinformation methods that were used by the Allies in World War II against the Nazis. So UFO phenomena being probably the greatest story that's only just being started to be told, it doesn't surprise me that there is an even bigger cover-up controlling it.
Do you think that this all really started to come to fruition around World War II?
It depends who you speak to. I mean, if you talk to David Grush, I mean, he talks about 1933, the Italian UFO. But I think in terms of that sort of serious objective military and intelligence analysis of it, I believe that the genesis of it was kind of like 1940s, when British and American and Allied pilots and aircrew were sort of experiencing Foo Fighters over occupied Europe, and where the Italians and the Germans believed that they were some kind of Allied super weapon, and the Allies believed that they were some kind of German or Axis weapon. But I believe that's the kind of like modern genesis of the study by the military and intelligence communities of the UFO phenomenon.
Now, for a lot of us on North American soil, this really started to hype up around Roswell and San Augustine crashes that happened in 1947. That's where we really started paying attention. This comes on the heels of the Kenneth Arnold sighting in Washington State, and I believe 1945, 46, somewhere in there. That's where we got the term flying saucer. And I'm wondering, for a lot of people, and even a lot of the people behind the scenes that I talk to, what happened at Roswell is still very much in play today. Are there any cases over in the UK outside of maybe Rendlesham Forest that are really the Roswell of the United Kingdom, that's where the fun got started?
Yeah, well, I think like you said, the Rendlesham Forest cases, because there's more than one, very much so. I mean, it's referred to as the British Roswell, but I mean, it's got all the kind of ingredients, hasn't it? It's got like a craft landing, military personnel going to investigate, craft flying over a nuclear weapons bunker over a very, very busy military base, shining a beam ostensibly at where the nuclear weapons are stored. And then the in the Rendlesham Forest case, a serviceman who actually goes and touches the craft, and then later claims to have had like a download from it, and then the deleterious medical effects afterwards, then cover up by the government. The fact that you had the commander-in-chief of United States Air Force Europe actually came over to investigate it himself, and then you had certain items which were sent to the headquarters of the United States Army, United States Air Force Europe, and I think at a kind of abrogation as well by the British of investigation for Roswell in favor and deference to the Americans. So I think very much Rendlesham Forest is very, very important in the archives of both the UFO angle, the sort of contact angle, and also the nuclear angle.
Franc Milburn, we're taking a look at the dark side of ufology tonight. Spaced Out Radio continues with me, Dave Scott, and Franc Milburn right after this. All right, we are clear. Remember, Frank, our audience can hear us on the podcast and YouTube side. Hello to Red Storm. Welcome to SOR Chat. Rob Heatherly, how you doing, buddy? Good to see you, my man. And Sweet Tony D, right there, all the way from the UK as well. Kira, thank you for the love and support. That wonderful super chat. We'll see you 1 week from tonight in Reno at the fan party. And who else has joined in here? CS, nice to see you. Trucker Andrew, how you doing? I got that beautiful belt buckle you got me, or that you gave me in Nebraska. I got that on my shelf up in my bedroom. It's gorgeous. Thank you for that, my man. Very much appreciated. Got the hat up there, too. All right, we are caught up. Big Frankie Milburn right there. Right there, people. Hanging on out. We're lucky he's not bench pressing 480 tonight. He usually does 500. My brother Eugene, how are you, my friend? Oh, you can tell me to shut up at any time, Frank. That's okay. Phineas Coathanger over on X, how you doing? No haircut, just actually staying in place tonight. Yeah. You know what's really weird, Frank? Is I use a certain hair gel that, because my hair is very thick and it moves. Every time I go on the plane, I swear it changes the composition of the hair gel. Because when I use it next, my hair will never stay the same. It'll never stay down. Roger,
maybe got something to do. Probably something to do with the pressure, mate.
Could be. Could be. What's Sweet Robbie G saying? Hold on. Hey, I'm kind of new here. Just wonder why there are breaks. Oh, Sweet Robbie G. You're hilarious. Good man. Burnt Toast. One of the best names on YouTube next to Dry Toast. Welcome back. Says there are far better UFO experiences in the UK than Rendlesham Forest. Scotland alone had 3 school landings. Yeah, those are weird ones. I wish you guys could see my Bigfoot actually changing color. Right now, I've got it on multiple color, like rainbow colors. It's awesome. Maybe if I turn this one off, hold on, see what happens there. No different. No different. No. Weird. Casey, I'll ask your question in hour 2. I'll ask that in hour 2. Remember, questions in hour 2, everybody. Yes, I remember that, Kira. Last year in Vegas, she played one slot machine with $5. First spin, she won 210. I remember that. We got just over 1 minute, Frank. Dirty Filth, let's take a peek here at what you're doing here. All right. Oh, Bigfoot hiding. He's liking the flowers. Very nice. Oh, we very rarely get to see you use a felt pen. Blob alert. We have a blob alert, everybody. Blob alert. Blob has entered the building. Well, you can't just give us like 3 seconds of blob, man. There she is. All right, big thank you to Dutch Hank, Deborah Rooney, Donnie, W. Decker, and Kira for the super chats tonight. Very much appreciate the love and support, everybody. And here we go with the next half hour. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Always appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Reminder to all of you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, you can always check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Franc Milburn, former intelligence officer, here talking the UFO story tonight, as we always like it when Frank comes in to educate us. Frank, thank you for being here.
Thanks very much, brother. Happy to be here.
There is a side to ufology that many in the public do not know exists. It involves governments, it involves cover-ups, crash retrievals, possibility of recovering non-human intelligence. We've heard the stories from people like David Grush and Lou Elizondo, and most recently Jason Sands coming out. Whether you believe in him or not, that's okay. I'm wondering, for you, when is this a darker side of ufology that we just have no clue about, that the public would just not be really understanding how big the cover-up is?
It will certainly be one of the most protected military secrets, because just as it would be if you were a country, America or UK, or another Western country, and you were retrieving some piece of high technology from, Russia or China. It's something that you'd want to keep very close to your chest. And I think once you're talking about craft, technology, maybe, biologics, as Grush calls them, which are of non-human origin from wherever or whenever they're from, then that would be even more of a deep secret. But it's happened before. Things that we've learned about now. I mean, during the Korean War was when they really, said the Americans really got into the whole crash retrieval thing, because they had advanced jets flying around in Korea, so they wanted to make sure that they didn't get shot down. Initially get shot down by the enemy, and then if they did, they'd want to blow them up in place, or try and retrieve them, and certainly retrieve the pilots. So crash retrievals of kind of conventional aircraft isn't a new thing. It's been around for decades. But there was a famous case in the mid-1980s when the Libyans were fighting the Chadians in North Africa, and the French were supporting the Libyans. The Americans wanted to get their hands on an Mi-24 Russian, Soviet-built attack helicopter, and the Chadians actually got their hands on one, and the Americans secretly flew it out of Chad, literally took it apart and underslung it under helicopters and flew it out. So crash retrievals isn't a new thing, and we've only heard about that particular case more recently. So if you're talking about retrieving non-human craft and possibly remains of living beings that are non-human, then that would be biggest secret of all.
Should it be a secret cell? Should we be the world, never mind the American public or the British public or the Canadian public, but should the world public be kept from this secret?
Well, that's a tricky one. It depends which part of it. But I think, from my own perspective, if you have access, if you're a country and you have access to, certain technologies that are so advanced, even if you can't exploit them at the present time with your current level of knowledge, you'd want to keep a very tight lid on it until such time as you are able to exploit those technologies, because you wouldn't want your adversaries to get hold of it. So I think that's been a large part of the reason for the cover-up, but not the only reason, for sure.
Does that bug you?
No, not me personally, no, because I understand how things work in that world. So no, it doesn't bug me. It doesn't surprise me. What does surprise me is how much information has come out since 2017. I think a lot of people, especially who follow the UAP topic closely, and I'd say younger generation people especially, they kind of get frustrated by what they see as the slow pace of things. But as I alluded earlier, blokes like you and I, you've been like, we're sort of like older, to put it nicely. We actually see things that there's a hell of a lot that's happened since 2017. So maybe we're not that surprised, and maybe we're more appreciative of the amount of info that has come out. I bide my time, because things will come out when they come out. I'm just amazed how much has come out so far, and I'm amazed as well that despite the criticism leveled at units like ARO, the All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, etc. The fact that it's in existence is fantastic. The fact that it's not doing a great job, also you could see as not a bad thing, because people are picking it apart. So the more mistakes they make, and the more they try to obfuscate things, the more people pick up on that, and the more people want answers. So you got to take the good with the good and the bad with the bad.
You definitely do have to take the good with the good and the bad with the bad. But one of the things that I hear a lot from our audience here is, who do we trust? Who can we trust? Who's telling us the truth? We have people in the government saying UFOs are very real. Non-human intelligence is here. We see it going to Congress in the U.S. Okay, but then we have a faction of the government that says none of this is real. We don't want to be discussing this. We're not wasting our time on little green men and swamp gas. And the public, well, they're left in the lurch. Who do they believe?
Yeah, I think that's the problem, because if you're following the topic sort of very closely, you can see, what's basically effective a line of BS, and people who are actually kind of legit, and pushing forwards for truth. I think it's very, very difficult for people in the public, because then it's very easy for, journalists, for example, who are sympathetic to people in the government who want to obfuscate facts. It's very easy for them to put out, ridiculing stories, effectively, that ridicule the topic, ridicule, for example, whistleblowers like Grush, being a prime example, ridicule people like, Lou Elizondo. So I think it's very difficult for Joe Public to have a lid on it, because a lot of them, they're not going to be diving into all the literature like we do, and they're not going to have the network and connections of people like we do. They're not going to be reading the specialized kind of literature, for example, I don't know, like Liberation Times, for example, or Debrief, people who come out and speak to insiders and have a kind of grasp on what's going on. It's very easy, most people will just pick up like the Daily Mail or whatever's like their regular broadsheet, and if not talking about the Daily Mail here, but if, for example, that particular publication has decided to like rubbish the subject, then people will just go along with what they've read. That's the problem, because they're not delving into it that deeply. Even for people who are delving into it deeply, it's like a myriad maze, and it's very difficult. You mentioned the names of a couple of whistleblowers, and I think it's very, very difficult. I myself, I verify it on a case-by-case basis by talking to people that I know. Do you know this guy, or do you know that person? And to find out whether they're legit or not. But it's very, very difficult to know who to trust.
Are the politicians themselves in the know, or are they just elected officials who can't be trusted?
That's a quite broad question. I think it depends. There's, I believe, certain presidents have been aware of the topic. Certainly George Bush Sr., probably George Bush Jr., George Bush Sr. certainly, but I think most, by what you'd call the gatekeepers, or those on the kind of like state within a state, they tend to see politicians, especially in the US, that they just come in, and presidents, they're there for 4 years, they're just like a kind of like a caretaker, and then they're gone. So I think some politicians, yes, are in the know, but it depends how long they stick around, which decides like what they can actually do about it.
Then who does know? Because military members come and go. just the same. Intelligence members come and go.
Yeah, but military and intelligence, they tend to be, they're like long service professionals. So they're kind of like dug in for a lot longer than the average politician. Okay, you could have a guy, who's in the Senate, for 30 or 40 years. But I think if you're, well, even in the military and intelligence communities, you have people who are there for like, decades, but they never, get rid into something. But it's definitely people who have been, in the know for a long time because they've been in government service, or they've been in, an aerospace and defense company that's doing a subcontract, for many, many years. That's why they're in the know. But people who are there over a period of decades, as opposed to politicians who are coming in and out of office.
Why hold it from the public? What is the fear of letting the public know that we perhaps are holding on to alien technology, and that we have the ideas to get ET home again, as Ben Rich said in 1992? Like, how do we do this? How do we allow this silence to happen from the public?
Well, I think there's a lot of reasons. I mean, we spoke earlier. There's the sort of like, the military intelligence reasons why you wouldn't want to advertise that you're in control of or have possession of highly advanced technology, even if you haven't figured it out yet. There's also the so-called, what people call, the ontological shock. People worried about, the effect of the knowledge of, wider.
And Frank, sorry, that's where I was going, was, how much in play is the ontological shock that the public may have, whether it's the economy, whether it's religion, whether it's personal beliefs, anxiety, depression?
Well, I mean, potentially huge, and it really depends on what's the nature of the disclosure. I mean, if it's something relatively benign, like, there's, for example, an alien race and they're here to help us out and sort out all our problems, well, then, yeah, great. You're going to have, hopefully stability on Earth, and then, everybody sits around the campfire singing Kumbaya. But if it's something like a lot darker, right? Like, people are legitimately being abducted for real, and governments have no control over that, and there's a whole sort of deep darker side to it, which I believe there is. Then that's a whole different ballgame. And then there's the other angle, which is all the kind of nasty things that governments have done to cover this up over the years. Not just ridiculing people, but ruining their careers, and up to include, sort of harassment and murder of people to keep these things quiet. And then you've got all the kind of like the legal, misbehavior as well. If you're a company and you've had access to certain technologies, effectively you've had, an unfair competitive advantage. So potentially there's huge lawsuits on the horizon if this kind of information comes out. If you bought stock in a particular company and then you sold it on the basis that you didn't think the company was doing well, for example, and then you found out like years later that you'd sold that stock and you didn't realize, because you hadn't been told, that the company was in possession of this game-changing technology, and suddenly the company is able to reproduce that and to exploit it, and suddenly the company is doing very, very well, then you're going to be a very annoyed investor. So it opens up all those kind of problems as well.
Oh my goodness! I mean, could you imagine? You imagine suing for millions of dollars because of an investment, or you find out that the government actually had your name on a list of being taken? I mean, that's scary stuff.
Well, I think we'd be talking billions. I mean, if it came out that for example, I don't know, that the UK, American and Western governments knew for, like, say, for example, 50 years, right, at a minimum, without doubt, that people were being taken, kidnapped, effectively, abducted against their will, and nasty things going on to them. But they ridiculed those people and said, oh, that nothing happened whatsoever. But yet, as the government, you're supposed to be protecting those people, because if people get kidnapped from their homes, and I say not under normal circumstances, but in criminal circumstances, then you'd expect the police to react, right? And it's not normal to have hundreds of thousands or millions of people being taken against their will. So, potentially you're opening yourself up to lawsuits there as well, because, you're supposed to protect the people. You've got a duty of care to your citizens.
Are people ready for that? People ready for the answer?
I think people who've had those experiences are because they want to be taken. They don't want to be taken seriously. Well, they're taken seriously by their peers, people like you and I. But for sure, yeah. I mean, I think they want to be taken seriously by the wider public and have what they've gone through acknowledged, just as if you were a victim of violent crime in kind of like in human life, right? If you're a victim of crime by other humans, you'd want to have to be taken seriously, and you'd want to have some kind of adjustment made, and the perpetrators brought to justice, as it were.
Do you think there is any sort of list that any government in the world would have on their own citizens being taken? Does the knowledge go that far?
Yeah, I believe very much so. I mean, you don't have to be a conspiracy theorist. If you look at what happened when Osama bin Laden got picked up in Abbottabad in Pakistan, yeah, you had CIA operatives who were going around the neighborhood offering people vaccinations and taking tissue samples to try and find out like who had DNA that was close to bin Laden's, and to narrow down where he was based on that. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if the governments, American government, UK government had huge database on who'd actually been taken and who hadn't.
Could we ever
that
get
was an X-Files episode as well, by the way. I'm
sorry?
That was an X-Files episode as well, by the way, that people were taken on the basis, I think it was like polio vaccination. So I think the episode was every American since 1947 had been like all the ones who'd been vaccinated, all their DNA had been stored, and they all had like some kind of unique genetic marker, and it was all linked to abductions. So no, I keep an open mind, but I think I think the government knows a lot more than what they're telling us. That's for sure.
I would say so. Have you ever had that confirmed by any government officials?
Me, no.
Well beyond your pay grade, I'm going to assume.
Yeah.
Okay.
I doubt there'd be many people kind of like privy to that.
We got 7 minutes to go before we have to go to break here. At the top of the hour, Franc Milburn, former intelligence officer, is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Frank, with everything that's going on, we hear a lot about the Five Eyes. You worked for the Five Eyes Alliance there for a little bit. How much are they trading info on UFOs?
I believe a lot more than we know. What you have to imagine is with Five Eyes or the network like NATO, literally, for example, I'll give an example here using radar. If you've got like, some radar station, a radar station, for example, in the north of Norway, if there's some kind of unusual activity, that's not just going to be seen by the operators in Norway. That's going to be seen by people sitting in Germany, in the UK, the US. It's all like an integrated picture. Okay. So it's very interconnected that way. And, the Five Eyes, a lot of it is based on, communication, signals intelligence, communications intelligence, electronic intelligence. Okay. So there's going to be a high degree of cooperation. It's been mandated now by law in the US. But I think more and more we're going to find out that there's been increasing cooperation between the Five Eyes partners on specifically the UAP topic.
Do you believe that they cooperate, the Five Eyes, that is, in some sort of secretive recovery program to help each other out?
Yeah, without doubt. Without doubt, yeah. Just as they would just as they would as if they were going after, like the latest Chinese, stealth aircraft, or the latest, Russian main battle tank to recover it from a battlefield in Ukraine. Yeah, they cooperate for sure.
I heard rumors of a special team that works for the Five Eyes, that their job is to go into hot spots, not only for UFOs, but for others, like, for instance, in Ukraine, to see what Russia's drone technology is like, or if one of China's, secret missiles or something, goes in international waters, that they have the ability to go and retrieve it before the Chinese can get to it. Do you believe that's happening?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't know if it's an integrated team, but I mean, it'll certainly be based on, whoever's got the best regional knowledge. So just as with sort of like the Five Eyes, the world is divided up into zones of influence or exploitation, between the Five Eyes partners. You could have that area of division, geographical division for the rest of the world as well. But I believe it's not just government teams that are doing it, but also I believe contractor teams from aerospace companies, people who've worked for at the highest levels of special forces, people maybe who've done that work in when they were working for government, for their military, and they can actually do that when they've left as well for aerospace companies who may or may not be doing it subcontracted by government.
Okay, so with the fact that they do have these programs that are available, are these programs the public would know about, or do they try and keep them as secret as possible?
Oh no, I mean you would know about it unless a whistleblower came out.
And if they are recovering UFOs, would the United States, immediately being the power source of the Five Eyes, would they be the ones who automatically get it? Say if a crash happened in Canada or New Zealand or Australia or even the UK?
Well, I mean, if you look at what came out from ORSAP, and if you look at not stories but accounts like Virginia in Brazil, it seems to me, for example, the Brazilian case especially, they've always had a very close relationship with the American military, and they almost defer to the American military when they have some kind of a UFO, a crash, stroke retrieval, or you've got like biologics on the ground. That the Americans are kind of like first port of call to be called to come in and to actually deal with it and take the kit away. So the Americans are always going to have that kind of like power and influence. There's no doubt in my mind that a lot of countries will defer to the United States in that way. I mean, obviously not like the Russians and the Chinese.
Is there a new race for this alien technology?
In terms of an arms race, yeah, for sure. I mean, I alluded to it in my first paper, and if you look at what's come out of ORSAP, I mean, if you look at like Harry Reid's letter 2009 when he was pushing for a special access program, for ORSAP, he was talking very specifically about hostile intelligence agencies. If you look at Kona Blue, which was the DHS proposed unacknowledged special access program, they talk very much about the possibility for exploitation by foreign powers. The whole kind of underlying theme is that this can push America ahead in terms of like military technology and power, and in terms of national security, but also as well it's something that can be exploited by by adversaries. And if you look at slide 9, the famous slide 9 that came out, and which I talked about in my second paper, I believe, very, very much. They're talking about all the threats and vulnerabilities facing the United States if based on these 5 observable technologies. So if you're an up and coming power like China, and you aspire to be number one by 2049, which is what they do, then if you're going to be number one military, technological, economic, and political power and military power in the world, then you're going to want to have those technologies.
Frank, on that note, I'm going to get you to hold on right there. Hard to believe we're already through 1 hour here on Spaced Out Radio. Franc Milburn, former intelligence officer, is our guest tonight on the show. More about what they're hiding behind the scenes when it comes to UFOs. We'll also take audience questions in hour number 2. Stick around. Franc Milburn here on Spaced Out Radio, the secret side of the UFO story on the mighty SOR. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you for tuning us in tonight. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott. All right, we are clear. Frank, we got about a 5-minute break here.
Great,
and
mate.
So just I'm going to put you we're going to bring Dirty Filth up here because Dirty Filth always takes over this break to show us his latest cartoon and to talk about Blob and everything else he's doing. Take it away, Dirty Filth.
And I try not to swear as much as possible. Oh, fiddlesticks. I think I've got a pretty good track record of not swearing. So I'm going to try to keep that record going. Yes, everybody's going to be all crazy in Reno, 7 days. Dave's going to be shirtless, dancing on a table, throwing his underwear around at people. Oh, boy. Yeah, you never forget your high school prom. So what time are you at over there, Mr. Milburn?
It is now. Hi, mate. It's now 6 a.m.
Boy, that's about the time the cats usually get me up. 6 a.m. and then I got...
Yeah. I mean, I try and feed my beasts. I make sure they've got a full bowl before I go to bed so I don't get woken up. But waking up as I did before at 4:30, they're all over me like as soon as I wake up.
I've got all 4 Rudigers running around in the art studio here. It's just out of control. It's been nice, so we got to have some nice weather.
Yeah.
So just leave the door open and the cats get to run around outside.
Yeah, I'm looking after my mate's Labrador as well, which is really nice because she's a lovely dog and she keeps the cats on her toes, which I like.
Oh, there's Blob, everybody. She snuck back in. She usually sits on my lap most of the show, and by the time I'm done, I got to get up and wait a few minutes before I can actually feel my legs again. Despite being a small cat, she's got like dark matter inside of her or something. So,
oh, that's cute. Where she's sitting on you, yeah.
Yeah, she's my art director. But yeah, my pops brought his dogs over.
How many have you got?
Sorry, I got 4 cats. I believe City of Edmonton allows.
How many cats you got?
4
4. Okay.
I've got 4. Yeah, I believe the City of Edmonton's allowed. You can have 4 cats and 2 dogs, or 6 cats. But that's just a lot of poop to scoop like 3 times a day. So.
Yeah. I've got 7 here.
Important. Oh, nice. Well, if you live on in a castle or something, then I'm pretty sure they're lax on how many cats you can have. Yeah. Ugh. If anybody's bored, you can go to filthy.com, FYLTHY.com. A whole bunch of my cartoons there. And you can scoop a copy of my book. And one for your mom. And maybe a third one to line your bird cage. Actually, I had somebody comment that. Like, your book's worth lining a bird cage. I'm like, well, if you buy one, you can line the bird cage and send me a picture, and I'll share it with everybody. I don't think you bought a book, but that's okay. It's just cool that I've published something. Yeah, that's all right.
Good for you, mate. Good for you.
I've always wanted to publish something since I was a kid. Finally published a book, and I was all done and everything, and I had the physical copy in my hand, and I go, crap, I got to do another one. And then, so I'm finishing my second one, and I'm like, well, I've got to make a trilogy. I can't just do 2 books. Oh, excuse me. So I have to make a 3rd book. But then, if you do 3, you have to do a quintet. So you got to do 4. And you just keep kind of raising the bar on yourself. You know what, Andrew and Gnomes Trucking? That's a good idea. I could just draw cartoons, and it could just be like rip out cartoons for your bird cage. Just printed on cheap newspaper. Brilliant. I got to write that down. Of course, I can't get up because of the damn cat. Thanks, Blob. Oh, look at that. I can use my old one. Yeah, I can read it anyways. It's well enough. Oh, maybe a quintet is 5. I'm not sure, Justmin. guess I'll have to do 5 books. But then at that point, I might as well just be like Steven Erikson and Ian Esselmont and make 10 books and then 500 spin-offs. And oh yeah, Brown Dwarf. I was going to get in touch with you because I was going to tell you about my friend's albino Sasquatch sighting in Alberta. Look, Dave, I brought Blob back temporarily. It's almost snack time, Dave.
I know. Blob's looking good tonight. Can you feel your legs?
Not really. It's worth it, though. Oh, gentle Blob. They were all running around crazy outside earlier today.
Oh, nice.
All right, I'm going to administer snacks, Dave. Have a good night, gentlemen.
Take care, Dirty Filth. Thank you for your great art, and good night, Blob. Hi, King of Waco Mono. How you doing? And thank you to our super chatters, Gizmo, Kira, Dutch Hank, Debster, Donnie, and W. Decker. We're going to get going here in 5 seconds. Hope you're having a great night. We are too. Let's do this. Here we go with hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Always appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hi to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America. We love you tuning on in. And let's get to the Desert Clam, shall we? Because we got to have that password. We just got to have that password. Let me get it for you here. What is it tonight, Clam? Batrachomancy. Batrachomancy is your password. Use it wisely, space travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Here we go with Franc Milburn, former intelligence officer, a dude who is looking deep, deep, deep under the covers and pillows of all of those investigating the UFO world behind the scenes. Frank, thank you so much for being here. Very much appreciated.
Thanks for having me back, brother.
Frank, no problem. Frank, I want to get into the idea that this is a multilateral government program that is going on, because we know that we're all waiting for the United States to have full disclosure on what they know. We also know that it was a type of disclosure that is very controlled, a narrative of a threat that is possibly there, possibly not. How do you feel about the idea that there is this idea that UFOs are threats?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different opinions on that. There's certainly a risk to air safety. I think that's beyond doubt. If you look at all the different cases, both to military and also civil aircraft safety. If you're talking in terms of threat, military threat, I'd say you'd have to assume it is, even though you don't understand necessarily the intentions of whoever they are, wherever they are from or whenever they're from. But if something is coming down, either shutting off nukes or turning them on, as happened in the former Soviet Union, then very much as a military professional, you'd have to see that as a potential threat. I mean, imagine all these scenarios like, Northern Tier, where it was the late 60s or the 1970s, where you had, missile silos being shot down, right, by, unexplained aerial phenomena, shining bright lights on them. If those craft had Russian, Chinese, or North Korean stars on the side, then there wouldn't be any doubt about it that it was a threat, that it were a threat. Yeah? It's because you don't understand exactly what it is, so it's hard to allocate intention to those craft. Now, there were some papers that were released about 1997, just prior to when British military intelligence 55, DI 55, they issued the Project Condign report, which was about UAP in the UK air defense region. So there's this senior civil servant, and he's sitting there, and he goes, okay, so, the Russians have been trying to probe our airspace, and they haven't shown aggressive intent, but they've certainly got the capability, to do us harm. So then he refers that to UAP, and he goes, well, we have to assume that if they wanted to do us harm, they could, because they've got the capability. So it's very, very difficult. It's trying to understand the intent behind the intelligences behind the craft. Now, SCU, which I'm a member of, the Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies, they've just done 3 really fantastic papers looking at the whole nexus between UAP and the American Atomic Warfare Project from 1945 to 1975. So in a nutshell, they ascertained that, yes, there has been a lot of interest at different stages of America's atomic to nuclear development, but they didn't assess that it were in preparations for some kind of military activity. But I take it on a case-by-case basis.
So the fact that these are coming into our airspace, invading and kind of taking over without any type of control, how much of a concern is it that there is going to be an accident? Has there ever been an accident that we know of where a UFO or a UAP has taken out an airliner or a military aircraft?
We've got the Mantell case, but then again, I think it was 1947. And then again, I wasn't there, so I don't know. But ostensibly, this pilot tried to intercept a UAP and ended up dying. I mean, a good case is 76 Tehran case, where at 2 different times, 2 different phantoms of what was then the Imperial Iranian Air Force attempted to intercept UAP north of Tehran in what was then at that time sort of heavily contested airspace between sort of pro-America Iran and the former Soviet Union. And the second phantom, for sure, I mean, the pilot was in absolute panic as he lost the UAP. Being in proximity to the UAP, it shut down his weapon panel. It shut down his communications. He tried to fire at it, and then some kind of like bright orb detached, or a bright object detached from the UAP and came flying towards his craft, and he had to take emergency evasive maneuvers to get away from it. So in his mind, I mean, that very clearly could have turned out pear-shaped. So I mean, there's definitely an air safety risk there.
Do you believe go ahead, finish up, please.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, whether you think the intent behind them is hostile or not, I mean, arguably, we've heard about, radar jamming of aircraft. Now, if a Russian or a Chinese aircraft jammed, say, an American, a Canadian, or an Australian aircraft, then that would be perceived as a hostile act. If you're in a military aircraft and you're painted, you're actively pinged with a surface-to-air missile radar, that's considered a hostile act. So potentially, if you have your radar jammed or your systems affected, your avionics, your weapon systems, your communications affected by UAP, then potentially that's a hostile act.
Are UFOs hostile, though? I can see where UAP and man-made objects that we don't know of are being hostile. But do we know if the UFOs are hostile?
Well, certainly the ones that were in Calares, Brazil, in the late 70s were considered hostile. And that's been attested to by people who work for the NIDS and the Advanced Aerospace Weapon System Applications Program. The Brazilian villagers who weren't just terrorized, but were also injured and I believe there are a couple of fatalities as well by being, kind of zapped with beams by UAP. And this is this is an ongoing case that went over weeks, if not months, and it was well documented by 3 different Brazilian intelligence agencies. So in that case, yeah, UAP were definitely hostile, and the occupants in them were definitely hostile.
It's very weird that you bring up Brazil, because the one thing that I've tended to notice, maybe you have too, is the extraterrestrial contact that seems to happen in South America always seems to be very violent and very, hostile. Yet what we see in North America and even in Europe, it seems very passive. Like, hey, we're here, we're doing our thing, get out of our way and leave us alone. But we might take some people in the meantime.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it would be violent and hostile if you've been taken against your will and had nasty things done to you. I mean, that's nasty, violent, and hostile, right?
It could be, but other people also claim to have quality experiences.
Yeah, sure. And I mean, and then you get the kind of like the in-betweens who initially have a problem with their, what they call it initially, an abduction experience. And then they kind of find some kind of communion with whoever's doing it. And maybe they get used to it, or maybe they're told that whoever's doing it isn't a threat. And then they seem to kind of accept it. But I think there's still a lot of people who have a very, very nasty time. And I would definitely call that hostile. If somebody grabbed me out of my house and started sticking in things into me without my permission, I'd consider that hostile. If you go to the doctor to get a blood test, right, you have to give your permission to do that, unless kind of like you're unconscious and you're at death's door and they need to treat you. But otherwise, it has to be completely voluntary and permissive.
But if you look at the fact that many people will state that, we made this pact with the aliens before we were born, when we were just souls.
I really don't know, mate. I really don't know about that.
I don't know about it either. Some people believe it, though, Frank. But hey, that's their experience, and you got to go with that. Okay, so do you think then that there is a legitimate concern of an alien species, or are we warding off any type of alien species from being public on this planet? Are we doing a good job with that?
Well, there's a lot of people that you speak to. I've spoken to scientists who believe, going along kind of like David Jacobs lines, they're walking among us. Some are benign, some are not benign. I haven't had any personal experience of it, but it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, I wouldn't want to, if I were, more advanced, whether I were benign or malign, if I could pass myself off as human, if I were able to do that, I'd do that. I wouldn't want to be, captured, poked, and prodded by humans, which I believe would happen if you said, hey, I'm from like somewhere else, I'm a non-human intelligence, or I'm human, but I'm from somewhere else. I think, you'd be opening yourself up to having a very, very nasty time. So if you're operating among the human race, you want to keep that quiet. And I think, if you're a government, you want to keep that quiet as well, because you've either got a deal with them going on, or B, you're not able to do anything about it. So either way, you'd want to keep it quiet.
Definitely would want to keep it quiet, but do you think then that we do have numerous crash retrieval programs all across the world where we are trying to reverse engineer all of this technology?
I believe certainly like the major powers do. Countries that can actually build, 5th and 6th generation, fighter jets, for example. And there's not many countries in the world, that can do that on their own. More and more has been coming out about, American programs, but certainly I believe that the Brits have an interest in it. The Chinese, the Russians, certainly. David Grush has said, though, he hasn't produced the people who produce the goods yet, but he's given the names to certain people, about crash retrieval programs and reverse engineering. Again, if you go back to both WhatsApp and Kona Blue, if you read between the lines and actually read the lines in Kona Blue, for example, the DHS release, they're talking about oral histories of both people in government, the intelligence services who have direct knowledge of UAP, of retrievals. They're talking about negotiating with other agencies to get their hands on both the exotic materials, the exotic technologies, and also as well, potentially biological samples. So there's no doubt in my mind that there's been a program going on in the States for a long, long time. And also, I mean, in my first, sorry, I mean, I mentioned, Eric Davis has been, quite outspoken about it on podcasts as well, to the extent of talking about the security of these programs, saying certain programs, the Americans, haven't made any headway. They look at something for 10 or 15 years, scratch their heads, pack it away, and then look at it again in another 15 or 20 years, when their engineering and their physics and technology becomes better. So yeah, there's no doubt in my mind.
How much do you think that they have? Do you think they have multiple craft, like Bob Lazar was saying out at S4? Do you think that they are sharing that knowledge with other countries that are allies?
Well, first of all, do I think they've got craft? Yeah. I mean, Grosh is talking like, half a dozen. So I think you've got to differentiate between, are these retrieved craft? Are these parts thereof craft? And then you've got the craft which are like reverse engineers, which are like human knockoffs of craft that they found. But it seems that Grosh is saying that there's at least 12 non-human craft that are built by, not by non-humans, that they have in their possession. But, we don't know what state they're in, if they are whole, if they can, fly, or operate. Also, James Lukatsky, in his recent book, and the very latest of the Skinwalker trilogy books, he talks about, that the U.S. government has actually gained access to the inside of at least one craft, and he talked about that again in a podcast last year on Weaponized. So I would have to say, yeah. I mean, if blokes like Lukatsky, Eric Davis, and others are talking about, and Grush, saying that there are craft that have been retrieved by whatever means, then yeah, I'll go with that.
What would happen if China or Russia were to disclose their UFO information first?
Well, firstly, I don't think they would. They wouldn't give. They're not going to show their hand as to what technology they have. And if China and Russia already had 1, 2, 3, or even 5 observables, China would already be in Taiwan, and the Russians would already be at the English Channel. They wouldn't be bogged down still in Ukraine. I don't see the Chinese or the Russians. They might do a kind of like a half disclosure, but they'd never give up the technology that they have. Neither would the Americans or the Brits or anybody on the Western side. You're not going to give up your military advantage or potential advantage that you're hoping to gain. For example, why would you disclose something if you're confident? Like, okay, I can't get this craft to operate now, but we're gaining knowledge and we anticipate that we'll be able to operate it within the next 10 to 20 years. Then you're still going to keep it quiet. You're not going to, what reason would you have to disclose it? You wouldn't.
And for the sake of humanity, that doesn't matter?
Well, I don't think that we're at that stage where, everybody's going to, stand around the campfire holding hands and singing Kumbaya. The fact is, the West is locked in global competition with a whole set of malign actors, including, Russia, China, North Korea, Iran, etc. So we're not at the stage of thinking about the benefit of humanity. We're still at the stage of thinking about competing blocks of humanity.
Okay, but let's just say hypothetically Russia or China disclose, or maybe they even disclose together. What would that mean for the West?
Well, I think I mean, if that happened hypothetically, which I don't think it will, but again, I don't know. I can't see the future. It would definitely put more pressure on American and Western governments to disclose what they have. But again, I don't see that happening, because I don't see anybody. If you've got like a military advantage, or if you're in some kind of communication with, a superior, technologically superior, not necessarily morally superior, but technologically superior non-human intelligence, you'll be hoping to get something out of it, I would imagine. So I don't see any scenario whereby you would want to give up information about what you have. I mean, for the purpose, for example, of embarrassing the United States and our allies.
We got 3.5 minutes to go here before we go to break. Let's get to an audience question here, if you don't mind. And we're going to start off with Casey. Frank, who are your favorite ufologists?
Oh, Casey Ryback. I love that. I love that. Casey Ryback. Nice. My favorite ufologists, I'd have to say, I kind of like the old school ones, like, say, Keith Basterfield, Richard Dolan, Robert Powell, Rich Hoffman, Larry Hancock, the last three from SCU. But again, there's a lot, there's a lot of younger guys as well that I really admire, and girls as well. But I like the kind of old school ones who've like been around for like a long time. And not just because they've written books, but because there's kind of been like a consistency to it, and because they understand like the history of the topic. They haven't just like rushed in and, in 2017, they've been banging away at it. I mean, like Rich Hoffman, who's a really good mate, he's been looking at UAP, and I'm not going to embarrass you here, Rich, but he's been looking at UAP since before I was born, right, in 1969. So you have that kind of multi-generational knowledge that I find really, really, really impressive. And they have literally seen all the kinds of ins and outs of, the UFO and UAP topic over the years. And that kind of like institutional knowledge is really, really important.
All right, let's see if we could sneak in one more here. And let's go to Latchkey. Is your scope, Frank, limited to the UK, or can you speak about the history of ghost rockets?
Yeah, to be honest, if you're going to talk about those kind of like early year UAP, I'm not just the UK focused now. I mean, I haven't lived in the UK for years. If you want to talk about ghost rockets, look at some of the books like by Graham Rendell, and also look at Nick Cook's book, The Search for Zero Point, because he talks a lot about those early kind of like Italian and German technologies, and those times where both the Allies and the Axis powers thought that the other side had some kind of technology, because they were seeing these things like Foo Fighters, or later ghost rockets in the Nordic countries, and they couldn't figure out is it like is it American, is it British, is it German, what is it? So check out some of the early authors on that. I don't claim to be an expert on that.
No problem. We got just under a minute to go here. Do you have fun with this subject, or is it becoming stressful for you now?
No, I mean, I enjoy it. I mean, I wouldn't do it if I didn't enjoy it. I think it's something that really kind of like kind of gets its hooks into you. And once you start, you absolutely can't stop, right? It's like a box of Pringles. Yeah. You have to keep on going. So, no, I don't find it stressful. I enjoy it. I think sometimes it's stressful some of the things that go on like social media and the constant arguing, and, that can be stressful for some people, I think some people as well, you get a lot of trolls. And some people, they get driven off like social platforms because of it, and then it becomes stressful. But that doesn't have anything to do with the topic itself. That's just like the kind of like malign periphery that goes with it. But the topic itself is amazing.
Spaced Out Radio is done halfway through. Second half with Franc Milburn right after this.
I'll just grab some more water, mate.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.
All right. Good show so far. Good show. How we all doing, everybody? If you have any more questions for Frank, put them in capital letters. I'll put them in the lineup right now. Hi, Christy Ables. It's not Friday here yet, Sandra Kincaid. I still have another 90 minutes to go. I know, Jeremy Jones. It's driving me nuts. Leaf fan is gaining a bunch of momentum right now. That's all right. My Oilers won last night to finish off LA in 5 games. That was nice. Although I didn't have Colorado beating Winnipeg in 5 games. Really did not. Their goaltender, Connor Helbuk. He looked like a sieve. Little Frankie Milburn, they call him in the UFO world. There he is. Just a handsome dude. Handsome. He's also got 49 cats.
Yeah, got a lot of cats, yeah. Or rather, they've got me, whichever way you look at it.
How many cats do you have?
I've got 7, mate, and then I feed a load of strays as well. There's like a couple of stray colonies. There's also a ferret inside a wall that I feed when I go for a walk. The sort of ferret comes out when I'm feeding the cat, so he gets like food as well. Actually, I don't know if it's a he or a she. The sort of ferret sticks its head out the wall and kind of looks at me and knows when I'm coming to give the food. Clever ferret.
He's like, "Can I have some of that, please? I'm a cat, meow."
Oh yeah, the ferret's bang on it.
That's awesome. Every time I go outside, day or night, I'm always petrified that one of these days I'm going to open my door and there's going to be like a mountain lion or a bear standing right there.
Oh, I love mountain lions. I saw one in Tanzania. Beautiful creatures.
Mm-hmm.
On Mount Kilimanjaro, one like walked right into the camp.
Yeah, cranky as anything. I haven't been that close though.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to stick your hand near it.
No. We got about 45 seconds. I'm about 55.
Okay.
And Joanne, thank you for that lovely super chat. Very much appreciate that. Joanne, Thank you also to W. Decker, Sweet Donnie Cho, Gizmo, Kira, Deborah Rooney, and Dutch Hank for the great love. Very much appreciated. Don't forget, you can shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. Where did Frank go? Signal dropped. Here we go with the second half of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Always appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Reminder to all of you that if you miss portions of this show or others, you can check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. We have him until the top of the hour. Franc Milburn, former intelligence officer, is here tonight from, where are you on this beautiful planet we call Earth now?
In the Canary Islands, about
Nice.
200 miles off the coast of Morocco.
Very nice. What time zone is that? How
It's
many hours
UK
ahead?
time, UK summertime.
Oh, is it? Okay. Did not know that. Look at that. Learn something tonight. Learn something. All right, Frank, let's continue with a couple of audience questions here. Let's go to Mike. Frank, how do you think the general public will react to a full government disclosure?
Depends what they disclose. I mean, one could argue that there's already been disclosure, and the way that public's reacted to it is, for the large part, you're BSing us, and you're not telling us the truth. If you look at, RO, I mean, disclosure is such a loaded word. Are we talking about disclosure that the US government has technology? Are we talking about that they know, disclosure that the US government and allied governments and other governments know that, people are being abducted or have been abducted? Are we talking disclosure about all the nasty things that have happened over the last 70, 80 years to cover up? There's a lot of things to disclose. So I think it really depends what we're talking about. I think, and this is just, from chatting to like sort of Joe Average, I think the public would react, I think, fairly normally if you said, okay, yeah, there's other life out there. I think it would take on a different kind of hue if the government was saying, well, actually, prepare, they're screwing with us and we can't do anything about it, and your life is at risk, and or reality as you know it doesn't exist. Then I think that would be like a bigger problem. Or if things were happening at Skinwalker, for example, the precognitive sentient phenomena, cattle mutilations, if we were told that, those kind of things were happening to humans on a mass scale, just we hadn't heard about it, then that would be a disclosure that I don't think the public would handle very well. It's like, we can't protect you. So, but I think I think people have been like conditioned to it for years and years and years through, the media, through movies, through, things like Star Trek, Star Wars, Battlestar Galactica, you name it. I think we've been conditioned towards it.
I'm more of a confirmation guy because I don't believe that we are in any sort of disclosure movement. Personally, because I'm an experiencer, I've had my own. And I think disclosure can be a very individual process. But I think what we're getting out of the government is nowhere near what disclosure is, Frank.
Yeah, I'd agree with you.
Let's go to Eli. What's your thoughts on Senator Gillibrand's UAP hearing this summer with Arrow? What do you think we can expect?
I hope she'll be back on the case. I I try not to get myself too excited about things, because then you always end up getting let down. Like, for example, for the Aero Historical Report, I didn't expect too much out of it, so I wasn't disappointed when it turned out to be a flop. I think, bear in mind, this year, it's election year in the US, and there's a lot of other things on the hot plate as well. The Middle East, Israel, Iran, and also, the tensions in the Asia-Pacific region, the Indo-Pacific region, and then also with Ukraine, the ongoing crisis there. I mean, the West and the Russians are closer to war than they've ever been in decades. So I think there's a lot of other things going on this year that are going to take politicians' attention away from UAP. UAP is just a very small part of a much wider picture. So I don't hold out a lot of hope this year for anything kind of dramatic to happen, but I could be wrong.
I've talked to numerous insiders who will say, we don't really care about UFOs. We think it's all bogus. We think that it's just a waste of time. And, we're more interested in the technologies that other countries are developing right now. Do you see this as being some sort of truth, that the reality is this isn't about UFOs, it's more about trying to figure out what other countries are flying or could potentially light up to come over here?
Well, I don't think the two are mutually exclusive. I just think, at the moment, if you're, sort of senior military in the US, Russia, and China, you're more concerned about the sort of conventional technology that's flying around at the moment. Because I personally don't believe that anybody has fully cracked 4 or 5 observables to the extent that they have deployable squadrons of them. So you ask yourself, well, why are the Americans spending billions on F-35, the next generation air dominant platform, and also things like F-16X? Why are the Chinese developing the aircraft that they're developing? If they had 5 observables and they could produce them, they'd be producing them, right? So I think the current concern is, what can we produce now and be ahead with what we have now? But I think, the UAP, as Dr. Eric Davis said, especially moving towards 2050, that's when he suggested the Americans might be able to approximate, some of the observables, if not all of them. Then I think that's going to be that is the game-changing technology.
Do you believe that these 5th-generation fighters out of China and Russia, which they are just developing stealth technology, which the United States has had for the better part of 60 years, do you think that they can compete with a military the size and the advancement of the United States?
Well, the Chinese and both the Chinese and the Russians, I mean, they made leaps and bounds, while the America and its allies were effectively concentrating on counterinsurgency, right, from sort of 9/11 onwards. The better part of 2 decades, America and its allies were focused heavily on counterinsurgency. The Chinese especially made major leaps and bounds in terms of technology. So in some areas, they're actually, they're direct peers of the United States. So the advantage that America had, both numerically and qualitatively, has seriously been diminished in the past kind of 20 years. And that's why I think that the UAP technology angle is going to be so much more important now. Whoever gets that, it's going to be game over for everybody else.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see that happening for sure. But on the flip side, the Americans are usually pretty good in hiding the toys that we don't get to see or play with.
Yeah, but I mean, everything comes out sooner or later. I mean, if you look at the stealth fighter, the F-117, I think the first flight was 1977. It didn't make its combat debut until 1991, right, in the first Gulf War. And then one then ended up getting shot down a couple of years later over the former Yugoslavia. But sooner or later, things get used. Whatever the weapon is, whether it's like the jet engine, the V1, the V2, the tank, the submarine, everything ends up getting used sooner or later. And I don't think it would be different with UAP technology, especially if you're at a stage where America has never been weaker relative to its adversaries as it is now than at any time since World War II, in qualitative terms, in quantitative terms, and also in economic and technological terms. America's is being, and our allies are being hard pressed on all fronts.
Let's get to another question here. Let's go to Cosmic Joe, who is asking, is it true that those who work for the government simply never stop and pose as truth seekers?
I think people who work for the government, there's things that they will always, protect, for genuine, national security reasons because they're patriots. But I think, you can quite clearly see from what's been going on in the US, especially since, actually, in fact, for the last 70 years, but especially since 2017, where everything's being much better kind of documented, that there are those who do, want to keep everything under wraps, and there are those who are genuinely seeking to progress the issue, whether it's for the general benefit of mankind, or whether it's because they believe that the UAP programs are being managed badly because they're siloed and they want to bring it all under one roof and have like a sort of Manhattan Project style plan to bring all the different disparate projects from DoD, Department of Energy under one roof, so that if one project isn't making an advancement, they can actually tap into experts and other ones so they can progress and get the 5 observables before Russia or China do. So it really depends what their goal is. But I believe that the people, I do believe people like Elizondo, I do believe people like David Grush, I believe that they're patriots, but don't expect them to come out and tell you the ins and outs of the UAP technology that America does have, or what they think that it has, because they won't. Because that's national security.
Franc Milburn is here on Spaced Out Radio tonight, talking about the darker side of the governmental affairs regarding UFOs. Let's get to another audience question here. Let's go to Joe. Is it true? Oh, we just had that one. I apologize. And let's go to Casey here. Frank, can you tell us what you know about time travel?
Well, the real expert on that will be Dr. Michael Masters. But I've spoken to other scientists about it. I believe certainly time travel from the future to the past seems very feasible. I've spoken to scientists who claim that they've been actually, spoken to what they call temporal agents. I believe that it's quite feasible. Dr. Michael Masters, and I'm not speaking for him, but if you read his books, he kind of looks at it more in a kind of like an anthropological point of view. So future humans are coming back because they're kind of like time travel tourists, and they want to check out like what life was back, what life was like 50 or 100 years ago, or whatever. If you talk to other people such as I have, they're more talking along the lines of Dr. Michael Masters talks about the Greys, for example, being us from the future in terms of hominid evolution. But other people talk about it in terms of, there's been some big cataclysm and you have competing groups of temporal agents. Some are from the future who want to make sure that the cataclysm happens, otherwise they will never evolve. And then you've got the other ones who are alive just after the cataclysm happens, realize that it's a big screw up and that mankind, needs to go back and be able to reset it before the cataclysm happens, if that explains it. So there's a competing kind of schools. One is a kind of benign one, Ging Ganguly, trip back in time, like a school trip, back to the past. And the other one is a sort of more malign, like we screwed up big time and we have to sort it out.
Tough question from our audience member, Michael, here tonight. Why did I see 23rd century tech flying over my house in 2017? I don't know.
Maybe it's a time travel. Maybe it's a time travel vehicle. I mean, also as well. I mean, I'm not a scientist, but let's not forget if you were talking strictly like extraterrestrial hypothesis. So if you're coming, from very, very, very far distances at very fast speeds, because of relativity, you're going to be time traveling, right? So, so by definition, you're going to be a time traveler. But if you've seen 23rd tech over your house, maybe it's because it's current tech that somebody has, which is as advanced as what we would have in the 23rd century, or it's something that's come from the future. So that's the only two ways that I could explain it.
Casey would like to know, Frank, did you protect any time travel assets?
Not that I'm aware of.
That's an interesting question. During your time in, Would you have been tipped off that they would be time travelers?
No.
Didn't
It wasn't
think so.
something that I thought about either. I mean, look, when I was a young officer, and then I wasn't a senior officer. And then you've also got to think, at that time, it was just post-Cold War. We were still looking at the Russians as being very dodgy. You had the former Yugoslavia had like kicked off big time. You just had the first Gulf War. So there was still a lot of things going on. You were kind of busy. UAP and time travel and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I was interested in it. Like I was reading books about psychic spies, I remember at the time, and remote viewing. But it's not something that's on your radar every day because you've got other things that, that are pressing and that you have to, take care of. So it's not something that was, really on my mind that much.
Let's continue on. Let's go to Eli. Hot Frankie Milburn. Could the United States disclosing non-human intelligence prompt other superpowers to gang up on the USA to release more information on UAP, even threatening them with military force?
Could the USA disclosing NHI? I think, well, they threaten them already with military force. I mean, the Russia's continually threatening the West because it's losing so badly in Ukraine, right? Losing so many blokes and losing so much kit. They're continually threatening the West with nuclear weapons, which actually shows their conventional weakness as much as anything. But I think in general, Russia, China, they would, they will push the boat out as far as they can. They will threaten the West as much as they can anyway, in the absence of UAP or on the presence of them. But I think it really depends what the USA discloses, right?
Do you think they'll ever disclose they've had contact?
Oh, I think that would be a big can of worms because then they're going to want to know, well, what do they look like? Where are they from? What technologies have you got from them? Have they been engaged? Have those particular ones that you're in contact with been engaged in abductions and you've allowed them to do it? What kind of technological, superiority have they afforded you? I think it would open up like more problems than it would solve from their perspective, from the perspective of the government.
Okay, let's see here. Do you think then, I'm trying to think how to phrase this. Do you think then that extraterrestrials just landing here and saying, hey, folks, we're here, is out of the question? Do you ever see that being a possibility for true disclosure?
Well, I kind of like the proverbial landing on the White House lawn. I don't know, mate. I really don't know. It hasn't happened yet. Doesn't mean it won't.
I know.
Then you have to ask, like, why would they do that? I mean, there've been plenty of sightings and interactions with occupants, which have been well documented. But in terms of, to a kind of like a global audience, I think even if you did, if you had suddenly like, you're walking down, you're walking in Times Square and then suddenly all the screens go blank and then they show like a picture of some huge like mothership landing in the middle of the the desert in Arizona somewhere or landing on the White House lawn. I don't think people would, they think that it was CGI or rubbish anyway. So
does it matter?
Sorry, does it matter?
Yeah.
Sorry, does what matter? The disclosure part of it or...
Well, does it matter for the governments? Do they even care?
Well, I think they care if all their kind of like nefarious activities come to light. Then I think they care. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Say, for example, they had some kind of like game-changing technology that they've been keeping quiet. And for example, I'm just pulling a rabbit out of a hat here. And for example, it could have sorted out like global energy crises. It could have sorted out. Could have stopped us like polluting the planet and destroying the planet as the way we have, or it could have provided like, cures to diseases and they'd withheld that. I mean, that would be a hell of a thing then to have to admit to.
What is the perfect disclosure in your mind? If you had control of this subject, how would you do it?
Oh my God, that would be a nightmare. I say it would be a nightmare. I don't envy those who are in that position. I definitely wouldn't want like the Russians or the Chinese getting their hands anywhere near it for sure, because they do too many nasty things to their own people. I'm not saying that other governments haven't, but they just do it on a bigger scale. So you wouldn't want them to have any of the technologies associated with it. I think you'd have to definitely manage it in a way. For me personally, and you know, I might get like hated for this, but I would want to manage it in a way that maintains a sort of American and Western, sort of geopolitical and strategic dominance in the world, to maintain a sort of, a free market, international, liberal, rules-based international order, as opposed to one dominated by, China and Russia. And also, I'd want to do it in a way that doesn't, panic the population. Okay.
How would you go about gaining support for that?
Well, I probably wouldn't need to if I were doing it behind the scenes. You have to get buy-in from certain people. But that's the thing. You see, I don't think that this has been so nefarious and it's been so undercover for so long that most people in government won't even be aware of it. Even if you have like top clearances, you're not aware. And it's only a relatively small proportion of government that will be involved in it, right? And contractors. It's not like everybody's going to be in the loop.
No, very true. As we got about 3 minutes to go here, Frank, before we have to say goodnight to you, should the public worry about what they are seeing through the disclosure process?
I think, yeah. I mean, the public should worry about being lied to for sure, because especially since you had the oh, no, stop it, cat. The cat's trying to attack the screen. Especially since you have the National Defense Authorization Act. Once they started, getting heavily involved and legislating, producing UAP law, I think it's very important that the public isn't misled, and that if you have an organization such as ARA, which is set up, they should be investigating it properly. They shouldn't be allowed to bullshit the public. They should be dealing with whistleblowers properly, and they should be doing what they're told to do by the lawmakers in Congress. Because the problem is that it's not just about UAP and disclosure. It's also about the American political system and Western political systems in general. It's like, is government serving the people? And is government even in control of everything that parts of the government are doing? So it comes down to a whole kind of constitutional crisis, potentially, if you have like a government within the government and it has no oversight whatsoever by lawmakers. Because in a democratic system, we're supposed to elect lawmakers and they act on our behalf and supposedly in our best interests. Okay, we know that doesn't happen on a range of issues, but it should be happening.
Mm-hmm. 90 seconds. We got time for one more question. This one from Derek. Why the U.S. military government decided to trade humans for technology, we'll never know. What's your thoughts on this?
Quite feasible that they would. I mean, humans have sold each other into slavery, right? So if somebody came down and offered you and they said, look, can we have, and I'm just saying this is all hypothetical. Somebody said, yeah, can we have 10,000 humans a year or 20,000 humans a year from your country? And we'll give you technology. There's probably governments that would go for that. Certainly a totalitarian regime would, because they don't care about their people. But it could also potentially happen in a so-called democratic country, because you'd be thinking, well, if I don't take this offer, then maybe China or Russia will, right? So I could see that happening.
All right, let's sneak in one more. This from Ems. What do you think of Elon Musk saying there's no such thing as aliens?
Probably a bit full of himself.
Frank, thank you so much for coming on Spaced Out Radio again tonight. It has been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show, as it always is, and we really do appreciate it.
Thank you very much, brother. It's always an honor to be on.
Always is, my friend. As Franc Milburn, we say goodnight to him for the night. But don't worry, everybody. We have an hour number 3 coming right up here on Spaced Out Radio. First, Steve Stockton from Among the Missing. Then Robin Haynes with the Crypted Report. I got the Dave 101. and the weird news of the week. Spaced Out Radio continues right after this. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott. All right, Frank, thank you, buddy. Appreciate
Cheers, buddy.
you.
See you later. See you later, brother.
Take care. Frank Milburn, everybody. One of the great guys. There's Robin Haynes. There she is, clicking on in. Yeah, Kev, come on. It's irrelevant to the conversation. All right. I'll be right back, everybody. All right. It's a good show. Hi, Data. How are you? Anybody else come in late? All right. There's Robin again. Thank you tonight to Dutch Hank, Deborah Rooney, Donnie, W. Decker, Kira, Gizmo, Joanne, and CS for the amazing super chats tonight. Very much appreciate the love and support. And don't forget, you can shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. We do not have ugly swag, people. Nothing ugly there. You can wear it and look good. Here we go. Here we go with hour 3 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Always appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America. We very much appreciate you taking your evening to spend with us and wearing some tinfoil, I hope. And the Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Batrachomancy. Batrachomancy is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. It's that time of the night to say hello to Steve Stockton from Among the Missing and another creepy story.
Hello, friends. Welcome to Among the Missing YouTube channel on Spaced Out Radio. I'm Steve Stockton, and I'm about to take you on an unbelievable journey of people just like you. Their stories and encounters will haunt us on Among the Missing. Although Death Valley is majestic, the rugged environment has resulted in many fatalities. Its immense size, towering mountains, and unique landscape make it an intriguing destination, and it serves as a reminder of the power and unpredictability of nature. Death Valley lies 282 feet below sea level and has an extreme and lonely landscape showcasing evidence of ancient volcanoes. During the summer, temperatures can easily rise to a scorching 120 degrees Fahrenheit. In 1913, the region set a record high temperature of 134 degrees Fahrenheit. Additionally, sudden flooding can occur on the valley floor during mountain storms. In January 1848, the discovery of precious metal at Sutter's Mill marked a significant milestone in world history. The pursuit of gold led to advancements in communication and transportation technology, contributing to the growth and influence of the American and British empires. The Lost 49ers, a group of pioneers who journeyed west during the California Gold Rush, coined the name Death Valley. The discovery of gold in the Sierra Nevada foothills by James Marshall in the late 1840s sparked the rush. To avoid the tragic fate of the Donner Party, who met their demise crossing the Sierra Nevada mountains, the 49ers organized 107 covered wagons in Salt Lake City during the fall of 1849, and Jefferson Hunt was hired as a scout to guide them down the safer Old Spanish Trail. Early on, Hunt made mistakes that caused the group to lose confidence in him. Consequently, only 7 wagons remained with Hunt, while the others opted for a more straightforward path using a map. However, this decision was fatal, as they mistakenly passed through Death Valley, North America's driest and hottest region. They had to camp in the valley and survive on meager supplies of melted snow and small puddles they were fortunate enough to encounter during a passing storm. When a group of pioneers became stranded in Death Valley, they sent scouts William Manley and John Rogers to find help. After a month of searching, the scouts returned with supplies, 3 horses, and a one-eyed mule. The pioneers escaped the valley using a map given to them by Mexican villagers. As they reached the top of the mountain, one of them said, "Goodbye, Death Valley," in a bitter tone. That name has remained the same ever since.
Thank you to Steve Stockton from Among the Missing for another creepy story. If you want more just like that, head on over to youtube.com/Among the Missing and hit subscribe today. It is that time of the night we say hello to Robin Haynes. It's the Crypted Report. Robin Haynes, I owe you a big thank you for inviting me to the Nebraska Bigfoot Conference in Grand Island, Nebraska. It was an adventure getting there, but once we did, I have to say, that was my first Sasquatch conference that I had ever been at.
Well, and I'm happy to announce that you will be back next year with bells on. We cannot wait. We're going to have, you're coming back. Blaine Tyler and his beautiful wife Lisa are coming back. And then we've got Christian McLeod, Cryptid Guy. He'll be back. Rob Kreider will be back. Our own Christy Sci-Fi will be there speaking. So we've got a lot of good people that are coming. We've got more that we're still inviting, and we're super excited. You did a great job. You were amazing.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And I didn't go over time. I actually forgot one of my stories while I was on stage, and it cut me down a little bit, but that's okay. I had time for audience questions.
Yeah. And you'll be able to tell it next year. So, and this time we're going to get you there early, so you have plenty of time.
But you know what? On the flight home, where I missed my trip back to Vancouver, I actually had them detour me through Las Vegas. And I partied up in Las Vegas for about, 5-6 hours before flying home. And first time ever, I actually made money on a slot machine.
That's fantastic. Yeah, you got hold of me and said you were there. I was like, that was so cool.
Oh, it was awesome.
We had so much fun. We really did. We had a blast. We had some awesome people at the conference. You know, it was so good to see you in person. I finally got my hug.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. And thank you for dinner. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're very welcome. It was so much fun.
I do have to say this, though. Being my first Sasquatch conference that I'd ever been to, I'll tell you what really, really impressed me the most is how you guys have a conference at the Nebraska Bigfoot Conference. And I don't know if other conferences are like this as well, so I have nothing to compare it to. But I could say that I was blown away about how everybody accepted everybody.
Yeah.
If you were strictly a flesh and blood believer that Sasquatch is a primate that lives in North America, or if you were on the woo side, or if you were on the their people too side, or whatever your side is on, I was blown away that there was no argument. There was no putting down people saying, "Oh, can you believe this guy from Canada thinking that this is just a bunch of woo crap that's on there." I was really impressed with that.
We have a zero tolerance for that. And we just believe that everybody has the right to their opinion. We may not always share that opinion, but as long as it's a healthy discussion and everybody's kind, we're good with it and we kind of go with it. I mean, I think everybody reaches what their belief system is in their own time. And Harriet McFeely, who owns the conference, is the same way. And, you all start out, all of us, myself included, thinking that they're this, flesh and blood thing. And then all of a sudden you realize there's more to it. And so everybody comes to it in their own time. And, you don't get to dictate who gets to have the information at what point in their lives. So we just try to make everybody feel like family. We try to make everybody feel warm and fuzzy. And we just have a good time. I mean, we do. There's a lot of, oh my gosh, so much work that goes into it. And I felt like a hummingbird 90% of the time. I didn't get to see everybody to the level that I wanted to because I was busy the whole time. But we try to make it, warm and welcoming, and we try to be understanding of everybody's beliefs. So we just have a lot of fun. We have a great team that sets it up, really works hard year round on it. So it worked out great. We had amazing people that were speaking. Dave, just so everybody knows, he kicked major butt. He did.
Oh, you're just saying that.
No, you did. Everybody loved you. I saw the survey sheets.
Oh, really?
Everybody absolutely loved you.
I didn't know there were survey sheets.
There was, yeah. So everybody got to put in a little bit of input, and you did great.
Not to pat my own back here, but I'm always curious. What were people saying?
They were thrilled. They liked the information. They thought you were very personable. They enjoyed having you on stage. You're a fresh face up there. They loved to hear what you had to say. I mean, you killed it. It was great. We had such good speakers this year. I mean, you were up there. Of course, Blaine Tyler was up there. Rob Kreider was up there. Christian McLeod was up there. I mean, I was up there. It worked. It just really worked. And we had phenomenal people, and we loved it. It was so great. It was worth all the work. It was worth all of it. The lack of sleep. I'm still waiting for sleep. I still haven't got to that point yet.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for my back to loosen up from American Eagle Airlines.
Oh, American Airlines, yeah. And the sad thing is that's the only airline that goes into Grand Island.
Yeah, but you know what? They also detour to Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
hint,
We're going to route you that way. I think next year when I book your flight, I'll go ahead and route you through Vegas.
Oh, yes. Yes, that Dallas.
Anything to avoid Dallas. Dallas is like the bowels of hell. I don't even know what they do there. It wasn't much better when I went home.
Well, did you have to go through Dallas too?
Always. It's a nightmare every year. This is the first year in 4 years that I was actually able to get my flight home. And because I changed my driver's license, because I'm moving to Texas. And so my plastic copy hadn't come yet. It was a paper one. And TSA did everything but cavity checks. Every time I tried to go through it, it took me hours to get through TSA. It was absolutely horrid.
I have to tell you this story. When I started my day at Vancouver International Airport to fly down, I go through customs, and the customs border guard agent says to me, what is your travels to the United States? And I said, I'm going to a Bigfoot conference. And she looked at me and she goes, really? And I said, yes. She goes, do you believe they exist? I said, yes. I have pictures on my phone of footprints. Would you like to see them? And she didn't care how long the other people behind me were waiting. She was all into seeing these Bigfoot pictures. And I showed her a few, and she was like, oh my God, this is awesome. And then she let me go and said, have a great time, and I hope you find them.
Yeah, the first year I was there, Harriet gave me a statue of a Sasquatch, and it was a toilet paper holder, but it was about 1.5 feet tall. And I didn't put it in my bag. I thought it'd get broken. I had it in carry-on, and I went to go through TSA, and they said that they wanted to examine it, and they ran it through, so they can see what's in your bag. And because it was made of plaster, they pulled me around and they said, this is conducive what we would think bone would look like. Do you want to explain to me why you have human remains in your bag? And I said, I don't. I have a plaster statue of a Bigfoot. They wouldn't believe me. So they pulled me around. They brought dogs out. They tested me for powders and substances on my hands, destroyed my bag. And I said, you honestly think I have a dead baby in this bag? I mean, that's the only thing that could fit in it. It was a baby. And they just had an absolute fit, destroyed the whole bag, didn't destroy the statue. And then at the end of it, they pulled it out and went, oh my God, it's the statue of a Bigfoot. And I said, of course it is. If I was going to lie to you about it, why would I tell you something that would pique your interest?
The statue of a Bigfoot, people. You had an amazing crowd.
We did. We had over 700 people throughout the course of the weekend.
Wow.
We had several news stations that came out and reported it, and TV stations, and we were thrilled. We really were. In fact, we did such a large number of people that next year we're going to probably, it's looking right now that we're going to have a bigger building. And that was, we had just increased the building because we had anticipated more than we normally get, which we normally get about 500 people through the weekend. And it was great that we did, because we hit over the 700 mark. And everybody was having a ball. It was so heartwarming because everybody just had fun.
Well, there was at least 400 people there listening to when I was on stage.
Yeah, I had 450 seats per day. And the day that you spoke, it was packed. And it was just like that the following day as well.
It was crazy awesome.
So it was just unbelievable. We were so blessed. And we had, like I said, we worked really, really hard to pull it off. It was our first year in Grand Island. Normally we do it in Hastings, which is smaller. And in my own personal opinion, we knocked it out of the park. People had so much fun. I got so many people that came up to me and just said, this is the best conference we've ever been to, because everybody just gets along. The energy's good. People are kind. They're not, fighting and carrying on. And we had great vendors. So we had great swag for everybody to get there. And it just was so much fun.
And I will tell you, the creativity of the vendors that were there, from a lit up Bigfoot print like I now have on my wall right here. I wasn't leaving.
I love those.
Yes. Yeah. And I wish it would show properly on our camera, on our YouTube side, but it's not even showing the colors that are pretty awesome.
Yeah, and yours has one of the actual Bigfoot in it.
Yes. So right, for those of us watching on YouTube and Twitch, right from the heel on up, there's actually a Sasquatch shadow in there.
Terry does a great job with those. That's first year he's brought those. He comes every year, and he's one of those ones that we always look forward to. Michael Payton had his paintings there, which were tremendous. Jim Meyer had brought things from Bailey, Colorado, from Sasquatch Outpost. Rob Kreider had things. Ron Meyer and Al McGargle had their movie things. We had jewelry there. Joel Remenaker from Flash of Beauty, they had a table there. We just had a lot of really great stuff. Keith Crabtree was there with all of his things. It was so much fun. Like, we just had the best time. And then we were really blessed. We had these kids that came in the day that you spoke, you spoke on Saturday. On Friday, we had these kids come in, and they performed a little play that they had done about Sasquatch for us during noon. It was just great. Like, I couldn't have asked for it to have gone any better than what it did.
It really was an amazing, amazing event. And thank you so much.
We were blessed that you were there, and we're thrilled you're coming back. Absolutely thrilled.
Oh, I look forward to it. I really do look forward to it. I was amazed that there is not a single mountain that I could see.
If you go to other parts of Nebraska, there are, but there by Grand Island and Hastings, it's just as flat as a board. But, and it was fun, everybody hanging out afterwards too. I mean, we just had that golden crowd of people that were speakers, and everybody just got along, like hanging out for dinners and, in the rooms and just visiting with everybody. It was just great.
Well, I can tell you this. I never thought I would meet my personality twin. And Christian McLeod.
Isn't he the best?
He is
the Crypted guy, Christian McLeod. He is one of my dearest friends, and he is so much fun. So much fun.
Oh my goodness.
And he had his girlfriend with him, Christina, and he's hysterical.
Oh my God. He had me laughing so hard.
And he'll be there next year too.
Yes, I know that. And we're already talking about him coming up here to
he would be great.
Areas. And so probably in late August, early September, we're going to have him come up here and hang out. But my goodness.
And he's so knowledgeable. I mean, he really knows his stuff. So it's one of those ones that not only is he a great guy, super amount of integrity, funny as all get out, but he knows what he's talking about. Like, there's nobody that will ever have your back better than Christian. He's just an incredible person.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. You had a great crew there. What's something that you took away from the conference?
I think I just like the fact that there were so many different views and so much knowledge, but there was so much respect for each other, you know? And then we had this audience that was extremely accepting, very kind, and everybody just got along. It just flowed. And I was so encouraged because people in the audience would come up to me and say, "This place has such good flow, such energy in it, and we just feel warm and welcomed here." I mean, you can't ask for any better than that. You know, great information was coming out. A lot of confidence in all of our speakers as far as the knowledge that they had, the accuracy they had with it. And it got put across to the audience in a very kind and loving way. Because some of that stuff, like David, it takes a lot to accept what the reality is. But the way the speakers presented it, it made sense. It was done in kindness, it was done in love, and the audience was really receptive to that. And the audience was every bit as kind and loving to the speakers. And I just love that because there wasn't animosity and, oh, this one's full of crap and this one doesn't know this. Everybody just got along.
That is very true. That is absolutely true. And for next year, what changes do you plan on making?
Well, I think, as of right now, we're talking about a bigger venue, on to bigger and better things. We try to take the experience from every year and tweak it and make it better the next year. I think organizational wise, I think we were pretty on target with it. I felt really confident with that. It's just bringing the speakers that people want to hear, having a fellowship with our audience, and try to, continue on that. Every year it gets better. We try to be really accommodating for our speakers so that they have an enjoyable time and they're not just there working. That's why we do like the speaker dinner and, different little odds and ends things for everybody. And I think we just try to improve it every year. We've got kind of like the same platform that we always do, but we always try to make it a better experience year after year.
Absolutely amazing event. It really was. And the vendors, I have to go back to this for a second because there was one vendor there, and I apologize if he's listening because I don't recall his name. But when he heard that it was my first time in Nebraska, he walked up to me after my speech, which I gave about my personal experiences with Sasquatch. And I forgot my best story. Damn it. But that's okay. He walked up to me afterwards and he handed me this carving that he did of the state of Nebraska with a Sasquatch print carved out of the middle. And he goes, "I want you to have this. This is your first time being in Nebraska." And he goes, "I want you to have a souvenir from us." And I just was blown away by it because I later walked up to his table and I was like blown away by all of these carvings. He had about 60
Wasn't that
carvings.
amazing? I bought some stuff over there too.
I could have bought nearly everything on his table.
Hmm.
I just had no room to get it home.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
I got so much stuff. I ended up taking all my clothes out of my suitcase and mailing them home so I could put everything in my suitcase because it was lighter to mail home the clothes than all the swag. But see, that's the other thing. We try really hard. We don't always get it on target, but we try really hard to surround ourselves with people that we think are kind and loving and generally want to be there and care about everybody else. And our vendors were amazing. Like every year, Michael Payton comes up and he gives me a painting that he does or whatever, because he's just that sweet of a person and he's an excellent artist. And, they do a lot. Our vendors go out of their way for people.
Well, everybody who wants to come hang out with us next year at the Nebraska Bigfoot Conference, just Google it, Nebraska Bigfoot Conference 2025.
Yeah, and we have all of our speakers are there. So even when they're not on stage, they're available for people to talk to and see. I think that's another key component.
Absolutely. Robin Haynes, the Crypted Report. We appreciate you coming on in. The Dave 101 is Spaced Out Radio. And your host, Dave Scott. Beautifully done, Robin. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. It was so much fun seeing you, Dave. I can't wait for next year. I'm looking forward to it already.
I had a blast, a BLAST blast.
We surely loved having you there, and hopefully we won't have airline problems this year, but we can't wait for you to come back. Everybody was still talking about you after you left.
Oh, well, that's nice. I hope it was good thoughts.
Well, you have a wonderful evening, my friend.
You too, buddy. Take care.
Love you. Bye-bye.
Love you too. Bye-bye. Robin Haynes, everybody. Yeah. Fun times. Got to meet trucker Andrew there. That was good. Always like meeting trucker Andrew, even though that was the first time. Outside of the storms, though, it was a gorgeous area. They have this giant museum there. When I say giant, I mean land-wise. And they got all these old buildings and a church there. And all I could think of is Merle would love this. Merle would love to be there investigating this. Fun times. Fun times. I did not pick up any cowboy swag in Dallas. I did not. And damn it, Robbie, I'm kind of pissed off about that because now that you mentioned that conference or going to Dallas, I should have got you something. Now I feel horrible. My hair was a little disheveled for the conference, that's for sure. The wind kept blowing into it. Nightmare for nice hair like me. Speed Romans, how you doing? We got about just over a minute. Thank you again to Kira, Gizmo, Joanne, CS, W. Decker, Donnie, Deb, and Dutch Hank for the amazing super chats tonight. Very much appreciated. I'm tired today. I don't think I've really caught up from my sleep yet. I don't. Go get your sweet Robbie G swag at spacedoutradio.com. Somehow we're going to try and get some red chin hairs that we can add that people could buy and just tape onto their chin so you can look like Rob. Here we go at the final half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Thank you for joining us. My name is Dave Scott. Always appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone tuning us in. And I want to remind you that if you missed portions of this show or others, you can always check out our free archives by go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We do have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. It is that time of the night we head on over to my lawn. So that way I can say, get off my lawn to Dave 101.
It's time for Dave 101.
Open up the door, it's Dave! Dave, D-A-V-E!
All right. You know what? We were just talking about the Nebraska Bigfoot Conference that I attended last week, and barring the horrid flight conditions from American Airlines, and yes, I did take their survey, scored them very low. It was a great weekend. And this is kind of what I wanted to talk about tonight. Because for anybody who follows the cryptid community, yes, Dogman, Bigfoot, anything to do with monsters, the one thing that I have learned over time is this. And let me tell you this. There is great tension between the fields of belief and the fields of research. We see a lot of people using opinion as science, and I brought that up in my speech that I did. But the flesh and blooders usually are too cool for school to hang out with that weirdo woo crowd. And then there's them space object people who believe that Sasquatch are people too, and they should have voting rights for whatever forest district that they live in. But I didn't see any of that this weekend. No, didn't see it once. The flesh and blooders were on their best behavior, and they weren't laughing at us woo people. The woo people weren't putting down the flesh and blooders saying, you know what, you guys are just too much like sticks in the mud. There was no name calling. There was no people yelling, your research is wrong. No, not at all. It was actually quite refreshing. And believe it or not, I realize that all Bigfoot conferences aren't going to be like that. And most definitely UFO conferences are not like that either, except maybe Contact in the Desert. But that being said, I was impressed with the people, not only the speakers, but the people in the audience as well, because they were there to learn all sorts of different opinions and research. It was refreshing because normally you don't get that opportunity. Normally you don't get people who are happy to hear the other side of the story. No, it was completely different. There was no war zones. There was no lines drawn On the left, we'll have the woo. On the right, we'll have the flesh and blooders. There was none of that. And I thought it was great. It really was a comfortable atmosphere. And look, there were a number of flesh and blooders there. Blaine Tyler is one. Robert Kreider is another. And then you had the woo train there. Myself, Robin, and somewhere down the middle, somebody like Christopher McLeod. And the one thing that I loved about it was we were all there to hear what we had learned, because your story is always going to be different from mine. And your experience is always going to be different from mine. And when you're out in the forest looking for Sasquatch, and you find out what you're looking for and where to find that hotbed area, which are rare to find, you stick to it. And what you learn from that area is what you say. Yes, you have to question everything. Yes, even the people on the woo side who believe this creature can vanish into thin air have to take a step back and say, did I really see what I saw? Do I really believe that? Because we all got to be our own best skeptics. But it was refreshing once again, and you're going to hear me say that word again, refreshing. Because people were just passing on knowledge of what they learned. There was nobody saying it's my way or the highway, or don't listen to those wingnut woo people. No, there was none of that. And in fact, I had a couple of them come up to me and say, that was your experience, man. We don't know what this is. And I even said that in my speech, because I'm going to be honest with you, because I believe a little bit more open-mindedly than many, I kind of had a little bit of a chip on my shoulder going in. And the reason why I had a chip on my shoulder was because, not that I want to argue, but that I want to get a point across that, especially in the cryptid world, we don't know what this creature is. We really don't. We don't have a body. We have footprints. Maybe a couple of poop samples. Definitely some hair samples. And maybe a couple of hand samples. Some blurry blob squatch pictures. Some clear. Some clear video. Some not so clear. But that's it. That's all it was. And with that, we were able to put together a great conversation of all aspects. And the fact that the 400 plus people who were in attendance were able to just ask their questions, knowing that we were open enough to come up and have that conversation. Why do you believe that? Why do you believe that this creature could be interdimensional or have some sort of special capabilities? Well, this is why. Because the evidence that I have seen makes me question everything. It makes me question how a track of footprints can just start and stop. But there's always that one skeptic there, and I did challenge him a little bit. He asked me during my Q&A, he said, I believe, it was more of a comment. He said, I believe the reason why track lines just stop is because Bigfoot has the ability to walk backwards in its tracks. I said, okay, but that would leave a double print. Because have you ever tried walking backwards and actually recreating the same print? It's impossible. There is always a double print. The original one and the secondary one. There's no way that you can line up your shoes with the sole being whatever pattern it is and make sure that that pattern lines up perfectly. It's impossible. I said, sir, if you actually believe that, I'm going to question you on it because it's scientifically impossible. Scientifically impossible. That was really the only disagreement I had that weekend. And if you don't believe me, next time you're out in the mud or even on your grass after the dew or rain has fallen and the sun is starting to shine, and you got that nice glisten where when you step in, you actually leave the footprints because the water goes back down into the grass and into the ground. Try and make a double print. Okay, try to walk backwards in your prints. I'm not going to say the S word right now because literally I saw snow on the way home. Damn it, I just said it. But try it in snow. Try it in mud. Try it in sand. Double prints do not work. It's impossible. But that was the only real critical question. The rest were very, very open to it, asking me, why do I believe in Sasquatch? Do I believe that they create patterns out in the forest? What should I look for when I'm in the forest? It was wonderful. I have nothing bad to say about it. Nothing. The inquisitive obviously believe, but when I go speak, I always start off trying to interact with the audience. So I say, who here has seen Sasquatch? Not very many people actually put up their hand. I said, who believes in Sasquatch? Okay, we had a number more, probably about 60% more. Where are my skeptics? And about 20 people put their hands up. Because you always want to judge the audience. You want to know where to go with them. Can you joke with them? Can you laugh with them? And this was a good audience. It really was. But the fact that, like I said, everybody from every walk of life in the cryptid world could actually come together under the same roof is phenomenal. And believe it, it doesn't happen. Because when you're on this side of the microphone and you hear a lot of these nightmares that happen at conferences, arguments, fist fights, name calling, and then it goes to social media, all because of disagreements or personal agendas, it doesn't bring good light to the community. That's why this was such a breath of fresh air. But I had a chip on my shoulder, and I was prepared to take on the anti-woo crowd that many Bigfoot researchers are. And the best part about it is I didn't have to have it. No, didn't have to have it whatsoever. And trust me, I heard and saw some weird stuff, including one lady's claims that Sasquatch records messages on her Facebook Messenger and can text her. I didn't know that Mark Zuckerberg made cryptid profiles on Facebook. I'm not going to lie. Even for somebody as open-minded as me, that one was a little far out of my reality. But I didn't say anything. It's not my place. Not my place. It was like, okay, that's weird. I mean, how else do you address that? How would you address it? Man, just the way it is. But I cannot wait to get back there next year, knowing that I am going to step into a very friendly environment where everybody is there, number one, to have fun, number two, to learn, and number three, to have great conversation about a mystical creature that we call Sasquatch. Makes it all worth going back. It made the 51 hours of waiting time to get to Nebraska worth it. It made the missing of my flight to Vancouver because of delays again. It made it worth it. And detouring in Vegas is never a bad thing, is it? No, I don't think so. At least for me, it isn't. But it was fun. And you know, the fact that on the survey, the people would like me to come back and speak, that's even more amazing. I didn't bore them. I did not bore them. I'm pretty happy about that. And hopefully all of you can come join us next year in Grand Island, Nebraska for the Bigfoot Conference. That is your Dave 101. Here's the news.
What time is it?
It's time for Shirky Poo's news.
All right, we got some weird ones tonight. Sit back and listen to this. It's called a carpool lane, but one California driver's antics turned it into a carfool lane in this instance. Yes, bad pun reporting right there. Last Wednesday, the California Highway Patrol's Santa Fe Springs office shared a social media post showing a driver trying to use a dummy resembling rapper Snoop Dogg as a passenger to avoid heavy traffic. So folks have been asking, if I have a mannequin in the passenger seat, does that count as a second occupant in the vehicle, trying to use the carpool lane with no one else in the car? The department's Instagram caption made. The answer, simply, they added, is no. No, you can't. We've got to give it to them. The appearance is next level modeling, but at the end of the day, plastic is plastic, the post added, while sharing a photo of the dummy who was dressed in a black hoodie, wearing black sunglasses. According to the Instagram post, it wasn't the plastic passenger that caused the unidentified driver to get pulled over. Officer Kaplan made an enforcement stop on this vehicle for crossing double solid lines, only to realize the driver was the only occupant in the vehicle with their plastic friend. The goatee on the mannequin was pretty tight, though. And you know, we love a good goatee. Yeah, we do. Many in the comments section chimed in, claiming the mannequin shared an uncanny resemblance of Snoop Dogg. As for the real person in the vehicle, the department shared their consequences. The driver was subsequently issued a citation for multiple carpool violations. Yes, he'll be getting a big fine. Yes, he will. All right, let's move on to the next story. This is going to make some people sad. People who have been anxiously awaiting South Korea's first and largest sex festival had their dreams dashed when the event was abruptly canceled. Oh no. Lee Hee-tae knew he was going to have his hands full with the country known for its conservative views of sex and adult entertainment, but he was determined to bring the festival to the repressed country. Virtually every developed country has a sex festival, but here in South Korea, we don't even have an adult entertainment culture. Tae, whose company produced legal softcore porn and now puts on such events, told the media outlets, I want to take the first steps towards creating one. However, the event, KXF, the fashion, had its plug pulled the day before it was supposed to begin after local authorities deemed it morally harmful. A women's group in the country also protested the festival, arguing that it would encourage the exploitation and objectification of women rather than its intention of being a celebration of sex. How do you feel about that? Well, after the venue was canceled on them, organizers managed to secure a location, but adult film stars from Japan feared they might be physically attacked as backlash to the show reached a fever pitch. Tae, who admitted receiving death threats, was disappointed by the unthinkable turn of events. He eventually found a place that could hold the event, an underground bar with a capacity for 400 people, down from the original 5,000 who had purchased tickets to attend, but the entire festival was canceled when the porn stars pulled out, citing safety concerns. Now, there's a sentence you don't hear often. Porn stars pulling out, citing safety concerns. Anybody else hearing the birds chirping in the background? I have been treated like a criminal without doing anything illegal, Tae said to the BBC, adding that he had taken steps to ensure everything at the event would be lawful and no sexual acts would be performed. His goal, innocently, was to simply bring the adult entertainment culture to South Korea as it exists in other countries. Tay vowed, though, that the event would be held in June. However, Seoul's mayor reportedly said it won't be happening in his city, which has no intention of getting involved in this type of event in the future. And finally, if you're going to Russia, don't do this. This is bad. A Russian influencer could get up to 5 years in jail for filming herself tickling a famous war statue from afar. Yeah. Alina Agafonova, who's just 23, filmed herself pretending to tickle the right breast of a giant statue in Volgograd, formerly Stalingrad. Despite Instagram being banned in Russia, she posted video to her stories showing the statue in the distance as she wiggles her finger in front of a massive monument. She also can be heard giggling and humming in the clip, which she shared with a laughing emoji. Agafonova, make that Agafonova, was put on Russia's most wanted list. Holy cow. After authorities caught wind of the video filmed last year as she fled to Sri Lanka. The influencer was arrested, brought back to Russia, where she was immediately taken from Moscow to Volgograd, where she will be detained for 2 months while further investigations are carried out. Agafonova is accused of desecration of a burial site and cynical actions that disregard the norms of morality, as well as the rehabilitation of Nazism. You can't make this stuff up. As we say hello to Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal, rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAP, Facebook, Spreaker, LinkedIn, Space Travelers Club, and on X, hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends, we're watching. We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night. Soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we got room for them too. Good night, everyone. We got her done. Good show. Good show, everybody. Give yourself a round of applause. You did well there, YouTubers. One second here. Must download. All right. Wow, Greg Maloney, thank you. Good to have you back, Greg. Thank you for that lovely super chat, my man. 400 Thai baht, or $14.85 Canadian. Yeah, sweet Robbie G, you're going to meet me in Nebraska next year. We'll hang out. There we go. Put up little Frankie Milburn right there. All right, everybody. You guys have a wonderful night. I got to go edit, and I'm feeling a little tired here. So you guys have a wonderful night. We will talk to you tomorrow. Guess who my guest is? It's our Keith Andrews and the ET Connection. We'll see you all tomorrow, everybody. Much love. Thank you to Greg, Kira, Dutch Hank, Deb, Gizmo, Sweet Donnie Cho, W. Decker, and Joanne and CS. Much love. See you tomorrow.
Stay healthy, my friend.
You too.
You need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.